back to the Fantasy Rugby Draft podcast. Thanks for tuning in again. For those of you who haven't downloaded episode 1 of the South African analysis, you're probably best to do that now. We discussed the Sharks and we discussed the Stormers. So in this podcast, we'll talk through the Bulls, the Lions, and the Cheetahs. Again, we have a man, Andrew Howitt, on the line from South Africa to run us through that. How are you, mate?
I'm alright. How are you guys doing? Good to have me back.
Yeah, good man.
Good to be back with you guys.
Nice one. So we'll delve right into it. Let's look at the Bulls. So they have had a few changes. Andre Pollard had a very impressive end to the season. Is Ludica going to start at him at 10?
I reckon that the Bulls will start Andre Pollard at 10 this year, being the glory boy that he was by beating you guys, basically, exposing Bowden Barrett on defence a couple of times. But to me, Andre Pollard is a little bit also another player that's slightly overrated. You know, I don't think he's the greatest kicker of all time. And I don't think he suits the Bulls the way that they play. In the Currie Cup especially, he got on against the Stormers. They played him inside centre. And he didn't do, when he played against Province, sorry, not the Stormers, he played inside centre, didn't do much, and they had Jacques-Louis Potgieter at 10. Now, the thing is, with me, I would personally start Jacques-Louis Potgieter at 10. Just based on goal kicking. I don't fancy Andre Pollard's goal kicking too much as well. I think that when Jacques-Louis Potgieter is in form, his goal kicking can win you matches. You can slot the ball from all over the place. Yeah. And he had a really good 2014 Super Rugby season, I thought.
Yep.
Pollard has a lot to prove. He's been tipped to be the Springbok fly-off now for the World Cup. Obviously fighting it out with Lambie. And but as I say, I can see Ludica starting him at fly-off.
It's an interesting one, Andre Pollard, isn't it? Because Jacques-Louis Potgieter last season, Jacques-Louis Potgieter wasn't really on anyone's radar in drafting, and I think he went mostly undrafted in most of our leagues. But certainly after at least game week 1, they realised, oh my goodness, it's not going to be Louis Fichet, he's just not up to the task. It's Jacques-Louis Potgieter. And as you say, his goal kicking was immense, and he fits much more of the Bulls' fly half needs, more like the Mornay Stain type player than Andre Pollard. Andre Pollard looks like a player who is much more in the boat. He challenges the line. He's a big lad. He wants to have a go at people. He makes them make decisions. And as you said, straight off the bat, he got through Bowden Barrett's defence quite a lot, purely by challenging that. And he got through Richie as well. So if he does get the 10, I think there's a lot of line breaks and there's a lot of defendant beaters and offloads there. Quite how the goal kicking is gonna pan out. I do also have that little asterisk. I saw a few, shall we put it kindly and say, jitters last season from Andre, but as you say, there's not much he can do wrong at the moment.
Yeah, you know, as I say, he's got a lot to prove. But if you can just sharpen up his goal kicking a bit, then I think he could be the new Liefling of Loftus. Oh, man. As I say, I can't say it'll be the most interesting season for the Bulls, though, you know, just year after year.
Yep.
And being a Stormers fan, you know, I can't blow the Bulls' horn, unfortunately.
No. But they have some really good signings. So Adrian Strauss and Nyakane, is that how you pronounce it?
Nyakane,
really make a big difference to their front row, which was already quite strong.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, Adrian Strauss, a big shock to me. What actually went down at the Cheetahs? There's talk that there was a lot of problems between Adrian Strauss and the management team there, but huge loss to the Cheetahs.
Yeah, look, for me, I was more than a little surprised when Adrian Strauss, the report came out that he was going to the Bulls. I actually thought that he's through and through Cheetahs, and I was a bit surprised as well. So it doesn't surprise me when you say that there's a problem with management and contracts, because he's a really good player, and I was surprised the Cheetahs let him go without a bit of a fight. Looking at the Bulls' midfield, is it nailed on Serfontaine and Engelbrecht, or is Engelbrecht might potentially float out into the wing, do you think?
Well, you could see that happening. I would think that they'd probably start with Serfontaine and JJ Engelbrecht. JJ Engelbrecht was he was a really good player a couple of seasons back, and he seemed to have drifted away from what the potential that he showed for the Bulls and for the Boks, mind you, a couple of seasons ago. He has a lot to prove. But as I say, there's a problem with the fly-off berth, and I can see one of them. I just see Jacques-Louis Potgieter. He might not start the season, but I can see him forcing his way into that squad just based on his goal kicking.
How did Andre actually play at 12 when he got shifted out that one and JLP was at 10?
Well, let's just say Western Province dominated them. We absolutely slaughtered them. Pollard was nowhere in the game.
Okay. Interesting.
There was just, as I said, they got a problem there, and I can see Pollard missing a couple kicks for the Bulls and then getting shifted out into the centres just because of they need space for the goal kicker. Yep. But I reckon the first game of the season they're playing against the Stormers, so they're probably looking at a loss in that game anyway. They're going to have Pollard at 10, I reckon, and they'll have Serfontein and JJ Engelbrecht in the midfield, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, that's interesting because it's quite in vogue for a lot of Super Rugby coaches to have that ball-playing 12. If you looked at the end of last season, I think we touched a little bit on it earlier in a previous podcast with Mossman. If you looked at the semi-finalists of the Sharks, Brumbies, Waratahs and Crusaders, they all had a fly half playing 12 at the end of the season. So Dan Carter, Kurtley Beale, Leo Leofano and Franz Stain was all the 12. So you do wonder if perhaps Ludica takes a leaf out of that as well and decides to put Pollard at 12 for that reason. And also because he's a young kid. You need that goal kicking, take a little bit of stress off his shoulders. He sees what the South African public want from Pollard. Maybe it's time to just take that off a little bit before the World Cup because Lord knows there's going to be enough eyes on him at that time.
Yeah. I agree with you. The thing is, on Pollard, I would compare him to a young Aaron Cruden. A lot of potential, possibly being thrown in the deep end a little bit too early. Pollard, he played well for the Asia under-21 World Cup out in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. He was named the player of the tournament, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And from there, straight into the box squad. But was never really proved himself at Super Rugby level. And to me, you can't chuck a guy from under 20 level straight into the box squad and expect him to be... I feel that Andre Pollard he still has a lot to prove for the Blue Bulls. He's definitely not a Derek Hogarth fly-off for the Bull. He wasn't... when Derek Hogarth was a fly-off, he proved himself at the Bulls and then he made his way into the box. Morné Steyn, year after year, proved himself at the Bulls, suited their style, was their 10. But Andre Pollard, question mark, as the Blue Bulls fly-off, maybe a great South African fly-off, maybe he's the new kid on the block, greatest player. But for the Blue Bulls, I still feel there's a big question mark around him. And, yeah.
Well, one player that I'm not ashamed to say that I have a bit of a man crush on is Arno Botha. That kid is an absolute beast, and I really hope that he can come back from his horror run of injuries because I remember one guy, I don't even know who he was playing against, but he managed to make a break from about halfway, and no one was catching him. This guy's, I don't know how big he is, but he's such an immense man muscle running down the field, and no one was catching him. He had some lightning pace as well. So have you heard whether he's going to be in shape for the start of the Super Rugby, or do you reckon they might nurse him through with one eye looking at the World Cup? Another player, same story as Pollard with Arno Botha. Good player, great player, showed some great potential, made the box squad. But as I say, I'm just going to compare him as well to Pollard. I feel that Arno Botha has a lot to prove still. Coming back from injury and a pretty bad injury. It's so young. Yeah, it was. Poor bugger.
Poor bugger. Yeah, he's great. He's a good player. I reckon that the Bulls will. They might take their time with him. In the news, it says that he's back in the squad and he's fit and ready to go. But coming back from injury for so long, I could see him sitting or maybe not starting the season, maybe playing off the bench a bit. But if you think of that, their back row, they got some serious problems. From Arno Botha to Piers Spies, who's also back.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on... Actually, I'd like to pick your brains on Piers Spies, actually. What are your thoughts on Piers and how he's played and what he provides, not just for the Bulls, but overall for South African rugby?
Piers Spies was another very, very overrated player. I hate to pick on these Blue Bulls players so much, but such an overrated player. I mean, he had a great season when they gave the Chiefs a good one at Loftus in the final, 16-0 or whatever it was. He was a really good player then, off his speed and explosive from number 8. Yeah, tipped to be the best player ever. You know how it is. But big injury to him. Lots of question marks around his injuries and why he hasn't been playing at all. And what exactly the problem is. There's lots of rumours all relating to different things about PSPs. Yeah. But he's been named the captain as well. I actually saw that this morning before I did did this podcast with you guys. Yep. That he's been named the captain.
Interesting.
Look, he's probably the most. Obviously old Matt Field's there, but it's a big gamble from the Bulls to name him as captain. I don't rate him as the greatest number 8. I think his days are over. Yeah. But, all the best to him. Hopefully he comes back and gets down some long runs on the wing. Similar to Kankowski in a way. Yep. But, he's been, I can't even remember when last he played. So,
and that's an interesting one. It's a bit concerning that this is our first podcast together, and you and I appear to park our cars in the same garage on a number of players and a number of philosophies. Because I have the same thing about PSP. So I think people fell in love with his physique and his tools and his speed, but in terms of actual contribution at 8 to a rugby game and what he brings to the table, sure, very, very good player, but not quite the elite that people were wanting to put him on a pedestal really, really quickly. He jumps off the page here, doesn't he? He looks great in the GQ shoot. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. But the Bulls, I always feel they're living in the past. If you just look at the players that they want to always bring back. Now they got Matt Field back. They got Bucky's might come back. And
right. Actually, here's another interesting one that they signed. So this player actually should post some pretty good fantasy rugby draft numbers, or he certainly did previously. So Lapis Labashakni, he wasn't too good. He wasn't too bad. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm a big fan of Lapis. I'm actually really, really sad that he went to the Bulls.
Yeah, right.
Also in the fantasy that we write for Fantasy Rugby Scout, the Fox Sports game. I don't know if you guys are familiar on that. But great player. I mean, the Oak, he knows how to tackle there.
He does. Well, that's the thing. So
how do you make 30, 40 tackles a game? Good Lord.
So in fantasy rugby draft for the newbies who are joining us for the first time, you get a bonus. You get 3 points if your player tackles 9 or more tackles, or clocks up 9 or more tackles, and if they get 25 plus, they get an extra 2-point bonus. So Matt Todd were always up there pushing those numbers, and also Matt Hodgson as well. They were always touching on that kind of 23 through 27 range. So certainly one to keep an eye out and see how that translates to the Bulls if he does indeed start, and how that kind of pans out.
Lapis also has a lot to prove. He played really well for the Cheetahs. Made the provisional Springbok squad, but nothing really came after that. After that, he was nowhere to be seen for the Cheetahs. Didn't play much. Everyone was wondering where's Lapis gone, and I hope he starts. I really do hope he starts. They have some really good, some loose forwards there that are great. Lapis Labuschagne, Arno Botha, as you said. They got Big Jacques Engelbrecht. Don't know if you remember, he played for the Kings.
Yep.
And huge number 8. Gee whiz, I remember.
Good Barnett. Good haircut.
Yeah.
Sweet haircut.
Yeah, I remember I was watching him when he played for the Kings. I think he had something like 7 busts in a row at one stage. He was just bouncing. Oh. And they got players such as Dion Stegman also still there. A little bit boring though. If you look at the Blue Bulls' whole team as an outfit, a little bit boring. Not what you want to see.
Well, then that's what I was going to touch on. I was going to start going into their back three, and I'm reading names like Bjorn Basong and Visser, and don't know. These guys just don't seem. Let's just say that.
Don't get me going on Bjorn Basong, Bruce.
Really, big fan of yours?
I absolutely do not like Bjorn Basong. Though he's probably their best wing that they have.
He might be. You're right. He might be.
But as I say, what you guys don't know out there is there's a good player named Jesse Krill.
Yes.
I'm not big, as I say, I'm normally not big on the Blue Bulls players. But Jesse Krill, also another product of the baby Bokke.
He was over here, right? He played in the 19s here, right?
Yeah. He played there. Good player, and they were playing him a bit at fullback in the Currie Cup season.
Okay.
But a lot of promise shown from him. I reckon that he could be a good player to watch. He played a lot off the bench. He played behind a player named Ulrich Beyers.
That was my next question, Ulrich Beyers.
Ulrich Beyers is... think of Francois Steyn when you had packed on a couple.
I can't think of a time when he wasn't, to be honest, so it's easy.
Ulrich Beyers is literally... Ulrich Beyers, I don't think there's much coming from him, but he was playing a lot of Super Rugby. I mean, a lot of Currie Cup, me. A lot of Currie Cup. They utilised him a bit at centre as well. Very big boy. But not... you could see him playing at fullback, though you're probably going to see Jürgen Visser once again. Yeah. Jürgen Visser is a good player, and another player who didn't quite cut it here in Cape Town for Western Province.
He's not going to let you down, Jürgen Visser. He's a very solid fullback. He's not going to rip up trees.
Yeah, he's not going to score. As I say, he's not a Falau, he's not a Dag. He's probably in the same sort of player like SP Marie from the Sharks.
Very cool.
I could see him playing fullback, though. Yeah, you're not going to see much. I got also for the back three, Akono and Dangane. Seems like he's been at the Bulls forever.
He's still alive.
Oh, geez, him and his brother, they seem to be around forever, don't they?
I assumed he had kids, and that's who was playing on the wing instead. For crying out.
But yeah, as I say, the back three doesn't look too exciting. Not that they're going to get much ball considering the pack that they have.
Yeah, right.
But as I say, just looking at the Blue Bulls, great pack of forwards. I actually expect them to do quite well though, just based on their forward pack.
Yeah.
But in the long run, I don't think you'll be looking at the Blue Bulls matches as the match to watch every week.
Yeah, sure. I think we're contractually obligated to talk about Francois Hougaard, but I know if I spoke to anyone in the New Zealand, they might not want to stress too much time and spend too much time talking about him. But he does actually produce some fantasy rugby draft value because he does make breaks every now and again. So, is he unchallenged at that 9 at the moment for the Bulls? Do you think he'll get onto the wing at all, or has he got that man and he's staying? I
was going to bring that up now. I would have actually thought. I don't think Francois Hougaard. I think when he came onto the scene, he was a great player, fantastic, showed so much promise. But I don't know. He's kind of deteriorated as a player. I don't know. I remember his first couple seasons at the Bulls. The step, just beating players one-on-one, getting through the gap, and just I don't know. His step was fantastic, and he seems to have lost that a bit. Also, his passing from the base, too slow, deteriorated. As I say, I don't remember him being that poor and so slow with his service a couple years back. He did, but and even his base kicking, I really feel that Francois Hougaard has deteriorated.
Yep.
Though I would actually shift him out onto the wing and play Piet van Zyl at scrum half. I could see that happening.
Yep.
Piet van Zyl is a good player. Had a good couple seasons for the Cheetahs. Was in Bok contention at one stage, and then also just seems like a bit of a Man City. He did. He went to the Blue Bulls and now he's sitting on the bench all the time. You know.
Yeah, strange. Yeah, I agree. How about? So I assume Francois is not going to go into witness protection anytime soon after the trial that happened, the Blade Runner trial.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much all cleared up. There's not much talk about that Archie anymore. You know, this year was all the talk, and it got a bit boring, to be fair, on TV all the time. But no one. I don't think that's going to affect him much. Cool. I think when it was going down, then there was a lot of question marks around him, but he came back and
he got Try of the Year, right? That was International Try of the Year. That should do one. He's a very low confidence fella by the look of it.
Yeah, no, I don't know. But that try was great. You got to love the dive. Eh?
Yeah. Very. I prefer Ben Tunes, but that's just me.
If there's any Blue Bull supporters out there, I just want to. That's another product of Cape Town. Francois Hougaard is yet another player from Cape Town, and I just want to have another go for the Blue Bulls fans out there. If anyone's listening, also Morné Steyn from Cape Town, Derek Hougaard from Cape Town.
How dare you? I'll speak on behalf of them. How dare you?
Andre Pollard went to school out in Stellenbosch as well.
Nice, nice. You're sounding like Christchurch Boys High School, where you produce all of these fly halves.
Yeah, no.
Is there anything more on the Bulls? I think we've probably touched on the most important things.
I just mentioned, I found a couple of things here. Flip van der Merwe, the lock.
Yep.
He seems to be injured and is only back in April.
Good tip.
But yeah, yes, I have to mention this as well. I was doing some research on their potential game plan that they want to play. Yep. And if you ask me, Bruce, you read the paper here, or you read online articles and everything, it's always about, the new expansive play, how they're going to pass the ball and score some tries this year. And I think that's because of how the Chiefs were 2 years ago, swinging the ball, scoring some great tries, and how the Waratahs played last year.
Yep.
But yeah, as it says in these articles, that Ludica is going to play a more expansive game plan. I can assure you that will not be happening this season.
That's awesome. That sounds like Arsene Wenger in a press conference about who he's going to sign in the transfer window.
Yeah, no, I can assure you that will not be happening, especially with the dodgy back three that they have.
That's awesome. What a great comment. So moving on to, it probably won't shock you, Andrew, but I'm sure it will shock a few of our listeners to hear that in the bookies' view, that the Lions are not favourite for the wooden spoon. In fact, the Cheetahs are. So just jumping into the Lions, I think for me, I always wanted to know a little bit more around their fly half, whether it's going to be Boshoff, whether they had Yankees, or whether Boshoff might get a 15. And just what the makeup of their team looks like. What do you think there, Andrew?
Yeah. Looking at the Lions, good team, a great team actually, full of heart, and it's nice to watch the Lions. I mean, if I think back to last season when they beat the Reds at Ellis Park, it was fantastic. When they were 21 points down and Skosan scored in the corner for them, was fantastic. But speaking of the fly-off, I hear that Alton Jancis is playing in Japan and actually doing really well.
Okay.
But according to the sources out this side, it's definitely going to be Boshoff for 10. No. He cracked a bit under the pressure though. Also thrown into the deep end with the Springboks a little bit. Played a couple games. Played some easy ones against the Scots. But in the final of the Currie Cup, Province were really lucky to win that game. And Boshoff I think he must have missed about 6 kicks.
Yep.
Fairly easy ones as well.
Yep.
They weren't particularly hard. But Joe, I can see him playing 10. He had a good Super Rugby season last year. When he came onto the scene, I just thought, here's another Yanni de Beer with with how many drop goals.
Without the good looks.
Yeah, no, definitely. But definitely, Boshoff for 10.
Okay.
He'll start the season. I could see him getting shifted to fullback as well. Similar story to Lambie.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. The Lions are an interesting case because they had a good Currie Cup and they started the season quite well with quite a bit of promise in the Super Rugby last season. I think injuries and fatigue set in as well. But from a fantasy rugby draft perspective, if you look at teams like the Rebels and the Lions, they've actually got quite a few gold mines in them. That they're always quite high-scoring occasions where players who aren't necessarily household names or maybe international players, if you've got a little bit of an inkling around who might be your starting and the way they're going to play, is certainly someone to even pick up during the week if it's a free agent, or maybe have a bit of a flyer late in the rounds when you're drafting, just to say, maybe I'll put a couple of Lions or Rebels players that I don't know a hell of a lot about on my team, just on my bench, because there's not a hell of a lot of defence going on in each of these games, and they always put the points on the board. So the Lions is a really good case in point for that.
Yeah, what I would recommend for you guys is for the Lions is to invest in the pack. Right. If you drafting in players, get guys from the front row. Sure. The success in the Currie Cup here, they dominated most of the teams. They tore Province apart, and mind you, they actually tore everybody apart. They had some really good players up front. Julian Redeling-Hayes, good player, solid. A new man named Armand van der Merwe played hooker. Though I don't know if he'll play this too much this season with Robbie Coetzee. Or hooker for them as well. But yeah,
So,
Lions.
and that's a really good. So, just picking up on that point. So, in fantasy rugby draft, we don't have individual front rows or hookers. So, we have a whole front row. So, anyone who actually plays for the Lions front rows or comes on that's been attributed as a front row player, that they accrue the points. And currently, at the moment, our ranking of the Lions is actually quite low. But from what I'm hearing from you, Andrew, it might be someone to actually. To keep under the radar and to actually think, well, maybe this is worth drafting because no one else will.
Yeah, no, as I say, their pack is good. I reckon when they play at home, especially if they play at Ellis Park. Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm even supposed to say Ellis Park anymore. They've changed the name so many times, but good pack of forwards. I mean, as I said, the prop Redeling-Hayes. He got on for the box at the end of year tour, and that's just based on the fact that the Lions' success rate at scrum time was sitting in the high 90s. I mean, they've really, really lost a scrum, and also penalties at the scrum time was very few. So Johan Ackerman must be doing a really good job, or whoever's in charge of the scrumming, they're doing a really good job there, and I reckon that will provide a solid foundation for them for the upcoming season. Though I do think that the Cheetahs will jump them. I think the Lions will finish bottom of our conference.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you as well. I wonder if the bookies are being a little bit knee-jerk with some of the...
I think it's probably based on the Curry Cup.
Yeah, true. That's a good point too. Yeah, they play well in the Curry Cup, yeah.
I can tell you, though, that just a quick one on the Cheetahs, the reason why they would be down there is that their Curry Cup side was pathetic this year. Right. A whole bunch of unknowns. Sitting in their squad. The occasional guy that was a decent player, but yeah, it was really a second-rate Cheetah squad. So I would put that down to that. That's why the reason that they are tipped to be the bottom side.
So just to finish off the Lions, if you look at their outside backs, now I know it's really difficult because. You know, the squads haven't been named yet, but someone like Sampi Mastriot, who actually he didn't play a hell of a lot last season. He's a little man, a little bit Brayton Pulserish to him, I suspect, but he actually, in terms of fantasy rugby draft numbers, he put up some really stellar numbers when he was on the pitch, which was fairly minimal. So who do you think might be the Lions' back three, as far as you can tell so far?
Oh, jeez, Bruce, it's tough. It's tough. You never quite know with the Lions because they seem to pick off players from other unions who aren't quite cutting it, and then they come to the Lions and they do really well. Players such as Skosan, the left wing, he was really good last year. I thought he was actually a decent player and came out of nowhere.
Yep. Also,
Sampi Mastriot, he played for the Bulls.
That's right.
In the Curry Cup. Didn't set the world alight, but as I say, he's a decent player. But also really, really unknown. Okay. So I'd watch him, see how he's going. They lost a couple players, the Lions. They lost Crisanda Botha, the Namibian. Not that he was the greatest player of all, but he was an outside back. They lost him. Dion van Rensburg, the old man on the right wing, he retired. And as I say, I'm looking at the guys that they've got in here, and there's really a whole bunch of guys from the Pumas, Leopards.
Yeah.
It seems that they got a guy from the Blitzbokker named Mark Richards.
Sure.
I'm guessing he could be an outside back. As I say, a lot of question marks around the Cheetahs. Though there is one player in the centres that I would watch out for. His name's Howard Mnisi.
Okay.
A really big guy. I don't know. I think he played a little bit for the Cheetahs last year in Super Rugby, once or twice. Really, really big, strong centre. Tipped to be a great player one day, but hasn't really cut it yet. I could see him forcing his way into the inside centre berth with probably Lionel Mapu at outside, who had a great season.
He played well, yeah, he did.
But yeah, as I said, lots of question marks.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we were trying to figure out the makeup of the loose forward trio as well, and how that will look.
There's only one man really that has to stick out. It's got to be Warren Whiteley. What a player!
Yeah, he was.
They have a really good loose trio there. You know, Whiteley will play at number 8, and they got Jaco Kriel as well, and they got Derek Minnie. You know, those are tough players. If the Lions can keep them fit, they'll take on any back row.
I've actually got Jaco Kriel written down here. He looks real talent. Is that what you're seeing too?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he played really well in the Curry Cup. Maybe Super Rugby. last year he didn't really play too well, but definitely one to watch out. I know he also got in the box squad. I don't think he got on though, but good, very good loose trio, very good front row, and
it's a good foundation. Good foundation. Boshoff's a good goal kicker. Well, as you say, aside from the 15 missed penalties he had in the final, but I'm sure that's the end of a long season.
Yeah, well, the last thing that I said for the Lions was just another nice team. I think everybody wants the Lions to do well. It's Ellis Park. It's the home of SA Rugby. 95, Joel Stratsky. That's tradition there.
I don't remember what happened in 95. Did something happen in 95? I don't remember.
But it's nice to see the Lions do well.
Agreed.
It's a good team, nice team, full of heart. The odd good, decent player. But again, it's squad depth. If they can keep Bosso fit, if Whiteley can stay fit, if they can keep the loose trio intact and they can keep a solid 10.
Yeah, it's good foundation. Good foundation.
They should do it right. I could see them going and potentially, playing the Highlanders or someone like that and beating them.
Sure.
But probably still in the bottom of the South African conference.
No, but there's some great little tips in there. The front row we'd underestimated, so we'll look at that. So now just going into the last team now, the Cheetahs. They've had some changes. I'm not sure. I'm hearing some interesting discussion around who their fly halves might be and what the competition might look like there. And I won't preempt it by throwing names at you, so I'll get your opinion, Andrew. What do you think of the Cheetahs in particular? Who's going to play 10?
All right, so should we start with the backs?
Yeah, why not?
Should we go? All right, let's go to the backs. Okay, so looking at the Cheetahs, you look at the back line, it's the outside backs, isn't it? Raymond Rule. Raymond Rule's got some serious gas on him, and he was tipped. I remember he came onto the scene and he was tipped to be like the next Springbok wing. Hands down, and he kind of faded away. Though I still have him down on my team list here as the left wing.
Yep.
As well as Cornel Hendricks, good player.
Yep.
A little bit of a surprise to actually have played so many times for the Boks in 2014. But no, had a great season. Good player, a product of the Sevens, product of Paul True when he was in charge for the Blitzbokke. Good player with Leroux at the back, another man. There's a bit of flair in the back, in the outside backs, which is probably, if you look at all the South African teams, it's the one team that you would look at the outside back trio there, and you'd say, okay, there's a couple tries from those boys. Looking at the centres.
So just to interrupt there, Andrew, looking at Willie Leroux, he actually is the highest South African non-fly half that we have in our rankings. So we expect big things from him, not just from a counter-attacking, but a lot of they seem to split even if he isn't playing fly half, they play a little bit of left-right with him, and he seems to put a lot of players in gaps, make line breaks. He is.
It's a bit of a, as I say, I'm a big fan of Willie Leroux. I actually recognised him when he was playing for the Boland Cavaliers out in Cape Town. Yet another guy from Cape Town. But there's a question mark around him. He didn't have a good Currie Cup when he played a bit. He didn't really play well for the Boks this year.
Okay.
Lots of errors at the end of year tour, and with the World Cup around the corner, I think he has to improve on some of his basic errors. But yeah, a confidence player. If he gets a bit of confidence, unstoppable. I always compare them to Israel Dag.
Sure.
Probably the closest South African fullback in a long time that you could compare to him.
Sure. So midfield, you had a few notes there.
I've question marks everywhere in the midfield. To be honest, there's a couple young boys that played in the Currie Cup named JP Du Plessis. Joubert Engelbrecht also played in the Currie Cup. And I'm not 100% too sure on Johan Sadi. I'm not sure if he's still in the squad, but if he is in the squad, I would think that he would play outside centre.
Right.
Johan Sadi is a good player. Got a chance at the Cheetahs and has done some good things for them. It's just a pity that they lost Robert Eberson, who was playing inside centre for them.
Yeah,
so, good. As I say, question marks, even for me. A lot of question marks for the centres. we'll have to wait for the squad announcements on that and keep an eye out on their pre-season games.
Yep. And how about so looking at the fly halves, they never really settled on once Hurston had his injury last season. They couldn't quite figure out there was Watts and they were tossing around with someone else. But I'm hearing there's another name in the mix coming back from overseas that might be playing the fly half, and Joe Peterson. How do you see that panning out?
Joe Peterson, typically a fullback. Yeah. It's great to see him back. I thought when he left Stormers, I think he had a really good season from the back, and I was quite upset that Stormers lost him. If I think back to now I'm thinking, maybe about 7 years ago, he was playing fly for Western Province. For a good couple of seasons, and he's exciting. Another confidence player. If he can get going and he can spark that back line, then I'd keep an eye open for Joe Peterson. He's certainly on my radar.
Yeah,
especially if he used to take the goal kicking for Province for Stormers as well. Grant used to be the back second choice kicker, and you got to be doing something well if you're keeping Grant out at that time when he was kicking so well as well.
Yeah,
but they say that he's going to start 10. Obviously, Sauro Pretorius will be 9 with Joe Peterson at 10. Yep. And if he does well, then great. I can see the Cheetahs tearing up a couple backlines. But if he doesn't, then I'll go Watts will probably be the fly-off. Yeah, it's sad. It's just speaking about the fly-offs. It's sad to see Johan Hurston not there.
I agree.
Johan Hurston, I remember, I think it would have been, I'm not sure if it times for you guys, but I watched him play. I think he was playing the Western Force. It was a Sunday morning for us. And yes, I didn't see a South African fly-off play the way he did in a long ball kicking, and oh man, it was fantastic. But another player that seems to have fallen through for South Africa. And they were playing him at fullback. For goodness sake, they were playing Johan Hurston at fullback against Italy.
Yep, it probably says it all, right?
Yeah, no, injury prone, probably gonna get fizzled or get phased out.
Yeah. So I think looking at the Cheetahs squad, I think 6 through 15 is actually a pretty good team. But my concern is 1 through 5, and we all know that actually is how you win a game. Up front, and I have big question marks around that front row after the losses that they had, and whether they can sustain.
For sure, it's another, Bruce. It's another questionable area. When I look at the squad, I can only relate really to the Currie Cup, but I feel that their Currie Cup squad was, a tester for Super Rugby. So with the loss of Adrian Strauss, the captain and the leader and the man for the Cheetahs, he was Cheetahs through and through.
Yeah.
There was a man named Torsten van Jaarsveld. If I'm not mistaken, he's in the Namibian squad for the World Cup. And he was captaining the Currie Cup side as well. So Torsten van Jaarsveld is, to me, probably going to be the hooker with Reino Barnes from the Griquas as their second choice. But excuse my language, but they're crap.
We quite liked. So I picked up Boom Prinsloo last season. Mainly because he had a sweet name, but actually there was some sort of analysis in that. He actually had a lot of really good line breaks, and he got through a lot of work as well. So that loose forward, if it's Boom, it's Mahoje. I don't know if he's going to play lock or loose forward, but they're not bad.
Got some bad news for you, Bruce.
Go on.
Boom's he's not going to be available. He's injured.
Oh, that is terrifying.
Yeah, so he's not going to be around for a while. I know he played really well last year, and it's quite sad. And Opa, if you don't know what Opa means, it means grandpa. Opa Mahoji, so it's Grandpa Mahoji. I don't know why. But anyway, he actually played all right for the Boks. There's a lot of controversy around. There's a lot of controversy around Opa Mahoji, though he didn't. He got thrown into the Boks squad and played a couple games, and it wasn't seen to be like the best for the position. With the whole transformation issue that we have here in South Africa.
Sure.
But he played all right, and I think that he could be a good player in 2015. If I think back to 2014, he scored a great try when he smashed. I can't remember who he scored against, but he ran straight through the centres and he busted them to pieces.
He did. He because he was listed as a lock in Fantasy Rugby Draft last year. So if you can tease these types of players out that maybe they play lock, but every now and again they'll jump on a loose forward and they have this kind of potential. He actually was, in terms of locks, he was the highest average points per game. In terms of lots, so ahead of Will Skelton, ahead of Brady Retallick, and ahead of Sam Whitelock, he was impressive last season.
Bruce, can we just quickly go back to the front row? Just the question marks there. With Kuni Oosthuizen still there. Now, Kuni, fantasy points machine, I think 2 years ago, scoring tries left, right, and centre. I think that still having him there will help the Cheetahs front row a hell of a lot. There's always questions about his scrumming technique. And dropping his bind and scrumming in. But, Kuni's got to stand up for once. He's always got Adrian Strauss and he had Nia Kane around him. That front row was solid. Now he's got to be the main man. Kuni has to be the Adrian Strauss of the Cheetahs in 2015.
And this year, and that's a really great point to raise up, because Kuni Oosthuizen, he did get penalised quite a bit for dropping that bind, but this year in Fantasy Rugby Draft, we've reduced the amount of points it is to concede a penalty. So the front rowers who generally clock up quite a few of these penalties, whether it's just loitering with intent or doing something really stupid, or actually doing something technical like dropping a bind, they don't get penalised as much. So whilst the loss of Adrian Strauss might have a significant impact for the Cheetahs front row, you might want to just keep an eye on the scoring as well, because the Cheetahs were actually one of the top 5 front rows last season to be playing with, and that was because of the amount of Adrian Strauss and Oosthuizen yards that they got. So one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I know Naka Drotsky's there and Oosterrand. They work hard in the scrumming and they pride themselves, especially with Big Oost there. But I would expect them to. They'll have a couple players there. I wouldn't be too worried about their front row. Okay. I'm sure they'll develop a couple guys and they'll be a solid unit, especially when they play at the Free State. Yeah. Especially for the touring sides, when you come from Australia and New Zealand and you go play in the Free State. I don't know. It seems as if it's quite a tough proposition for you guys to beat the Cheetahs.
No, totally.
But locally, just in the conference, the Cheetahs will probably get. I don't see them beating like the Stormers and the Sharks and the Bulls. Maybe they'll beat the Lions at home, but I could see them losing at the Lions. And
that's where the bookies see it as well.
Yeah, just back on the loose trio, I got a couple names, Hendrik Brousseau, but also very, very injury prone.
Yeah.
And Jean Cook. I think he played a little bit in the 2014 season. Jean Cook, good player, strong player. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. No, those are good.
It might be a tough season for the Cheetahs as well. And just to add, they've lost obviously Lapis Labuskakny and Philip van der Walt, the number 8.
Yeah, that's a good one to bring up actually, because he was really good. He played, and certainly from a Fantasy Rugby Draft perspective, I had him on my team last year, and he certainly made quite a significant impact. So that will be a loss.
Yeah, definitely. No, he was a really good player, and for the fantasy that we play, or for the fantasy that I write for, he was last year especially one of the players you wanted in your team, racking up points left, right, and centre.
No, very good. All right. So, any more on the Cheetahs? Any more for any more?
Just another player out. Henny Danila.
Oh yeah.
There's a player that they lost. He was alright. Not a bad player. Solid for them.
I feel as though I could replace Henry Danila with SP Moraes with Jürgen Visser, and I wouldn't actually know their styles of play are so familiar.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I certainly agree with you. But if I'm just looking at the squad changes here of the Cheetahs, Danila out, Rousseau de Klerk, which was actually a really good prop of theirs. He's also gone. Goosen's gone. Lapis is gone. Lichtoring Landman, the one lock, which is Lighthouse Landman for you guys. I don't know. Some of the names it amuses me as well. But anyway, if I'm looking here, the Howard Mnisi guy that I mentioned previously for the Lions, he was with the Cheetahs. He's now with the Lions. It's another loss for them in the centres, which is also questionable why he's gone. Rian Smith, which is a fly-off, gone. And Valti van Meulen, which I believe was a flank, retired. And Niakane, so there's a lot of changes there with the Cheetahs. If I'm just looking, with not much coming in besides Joe Peterson and just a quick one on Sir Joel Peterson from the EP
Yes.
Kings.
We had him written down, yep.
He's come there, but I don't see him playing much. He might play off the bench. If there's a couple injuries in the outside backs, then I could see him playing. Okay. But yeah, could be a tough season for the Cheetahs. Good luck to them. I'm not sure which teams they aren't playing this year, but hope for their sake that they can do well.
And so I think looking at the Lions and the Cheetahs, it is going to be, well, it appears on papers without knowing the squads as well that it is going to be a tough season. But in terms of fantasy rugby, if you can do some analysis pretty early on in the season and pick out who these players might be picking up points that aren't household names, that's a key to fantasy success, because not a lot of people, certainly from Australia and New Zealand, are going to know these players. They're going to be even watching some of the games. So if you can somehow roster them on your team, they generally play in high-scoring encounters. So there's fantasy points to be had there. But tough proper season for those guys.
Bruce, can I interrupt quickly? Just back to the Cheetahs. I'm busy reading something here. What's scary for them is this. Their first game, they have the Sharks away. That's going to be a loss. Then they have a bye. Then they come back and then they play the Blues. They're not going to beat the Blues. Then they play the Bulls. I don't think they'll beat the Bulls. Then they play the Sharks at home. They're not going to beat the Sharks at home. Then they go and play Crusaders, Chiefs, Brumbies. And that's now... now we're sitting halfway through the competition and I don't see any wins there. And they play the Force away, which, we never know.
Yeah, okay.
But... it's going to probably maybe that's why the bookies have them down for the bottom.
Maybe.
But tough season ahead for them.
All right. Well, no. Thanks for that, Andrew. That's a great wrap up. That's probably about all time we have today. In the next pod, we'll have the mayor on to discuss his Drafting 101 article and the breakdown for 2015. We'll try and keep his boasting of how he won the league last year to a short and brief. We'll give him 30 seconds. But firstly, a big thank you, Andrew, for pulling in. Really great analysis. We hope to have you again once the season starts, or even a little bit closer to the drafting to see if once these South African squads, just to get a little bit of your kind of, maybe this is a sleeper, maybe it's not. But yeah, thanks very much, Andrew.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys. I would love to. I'd love to continue chatting to you guys about the rugby and stuff. I'll watch the games from out here and give you a bit of my perspective, and I'm going to give Fantasy Rugby Draft a go this year as well.
Good man.
I'll give it a shot. I haven't played it before, but I'm going to give it a go, and hopefully I can beat a couple of you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. See if you can hold your nerve. It's tough, that online draft, but see if you can hold your nerve. A quick reminder how to contact us before we fly away. You can follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Rug Draft. That's Fantasy RUG Draft, or on Facebook. Or if you've got any questions, then flick it through at support at fantasyrugbydraft.com. And if you wanted to follow Andrew and all his sage-like fantasy advice, it's Twitter, which is at ARHowitt, ARHOWITT 12. That's about all time we have. I'm Bruce Wilkinson. El Te Ora Pera.